Good evening, everyone. This is Reading for Charity again. This time around, we're reading for the Archie Foundation. It's a fantastic charity. Reading 100 books for them, getting donations, and trying to raise a bit of money for what is a very, very good charity. I'm going to cut back on the charity spiel a little bit, because if you've seen any of the other videos, you'll already know it. It's getting a little bit boring for everyone, I suspect. Given the fact it's possibly 4 minutes out of a 15-minute video, but I'll continue to add it at the end. Today, if you do hear a strange noise in the background, it will be my cat. He's sitting right in front of me, and he is snoring loudly enough to set off the mic according to OBS. So any strange noises, it is the cat. Today, The Dark Tower continues with The Wastelands, I should say, which is the third in the series of 7-ish books, 7, possibly 9, depending on which books you include in the series. And it kind of follows straight on from the end of The Drawing of the Three, which is the second book. Again, with the whole spiel that Stephen King seems to have, which is just, one book runs into the other. He has the idea that the whole series is essentially one contiguous book, continuing from one to the next. And despite the fact he says it in the foreword, I know for a fact that's technically not true, because I'm partway through Wizard and Glass just now, and that is in no way could be described as being contiguous. He kind of gives it the idea that it is, but it's not. It's completely separate. You can probably ignore 30% of that one, but we'll get to that one. The Wastelands, yes. So this follows directly on from The Drawing of the Three. He has Eddie. He has Det, or Susanna, as she's now known after she's been made whole again, and they're continuing on towards the Dark Tower. The start of the book is basically the advanced training that Eddie and Susanna appear to be getting in a very, very short space of time. What appears to be a very short space of time, as it's been repeatedly said in Roland's world, that time is essentially malleable. So what appears to be a short space of time could be really, months or years even, to get them up to kind of the level of ability that they demonstrate through the book. And again, I think that's quite it's a useful trait for King to employ. Setting up the fact that time is malleable means that he can just kind of ignore it in places where he doesn't want to show things that are boring. Having a training montage typically is how you do it in a film. You kick the music and you get the guy running up and down the stairs, and suddenly he's a fantastic boxer. In books, it's Stephen King's taken exactly the right tone of the way of handling it, rather than just doing ... 6 months later he's gone ... and they're really, really good now, which is a nice way of doing it. It's also the implication that Eddie and Susanna have now replaced kind of Roland's hands. Roland doesn't. I think he fires his gun maybe 3 or 4 times in the book. He doesn't fire it much at all. He spends most of his time. The people who fire most of the shots are definitely Susanna and Eddie. So I hope that kind of illusion keeps going, the way that they've replaced his hands, because I really like the idea. And if he keeps it going, I think he could actually take it in a really, really nice direction. The other bit that's in this book, and this is the major spoiler warning coming across the screen right now, is the return of Jake. And the idea that Roland is relentless yet had great feelings for Jake. Oh, that's my cat going. There we go. The idea that Roland was relentless and remorseless is kind of thrown away gently as the series has gone on, and the idea is more that he is. They use the word relentless rather than remorseless. He does have feelings, and Stephen King, shows the fact he has feelings repeatedly through the book, and possibly realising that the character of Roland, as it stands, is actually relatively unlikable as a character. A man who just uses and discards people without feeling isn't really the hero of a story. He's very much more what you would normally describe as the villain of a story. So over the course of The Wastelands, King has made Roland far more relatable than he is in the first two books, far more of a typical hero character. Which I think is necessary for a long-term series, but also slightly disappointing because you haven't got that kind of... I think if you look at modern TV and modern film and modern books, you get far more of that unlikable character who wins anyway. I'm thinking of Game of Thrones or House of Cards, for example. House of Cards is a really good one, actually, of having a lead who is despicable in every single way, yet you kind of root for him with the way that the show is set up. I think the first two books had Roland set up in a very similar way. You know, he's relentless and remorseless and verging on emotionless in everything to do with his quest for the tower. And that would have been an interesting character to, I think, gone on with. And it would have been, I suspect, a very different series of books if he had. But no, King spends Wastelands kind of mollifying that figure, you know, gentling him down significantly into the character that he is near the end of the Wastelands, where he cares much more about his friends, and he cares much more about Jake, and even Oi, the bumbler. You know, he uses the quartet structure to kind of bring them all together and almost force Roland to care about them. It's a nice way of doing it, but I think it could have been a different set of books if he had. The thing that I think amused me most about this book is the ending. He could not finish the book in the same way he spent the last kind of 100 pages of the Drawing of the Three, getting all of the loose ends gathered together in a nice little bow. In the Wastelands, he doesn't. He can't. He has to finish it on... It's not even necessarily a cliffhanger, but it's quite an exciting... literally halfway through an exciting scene. And I don't know whether that was pressures by the publisher to get something done or not. It kind of feels like it is, and similar to the way that all the in Drawing of the Three, everything was kind of tied together quite quickly. In this book, it just stops, stone dead, bang, done, right. And in the post note he has to the book, he actually apologises for it, and he says he doesn't want to leave things hanging as they are. And, you know, I think that just confirms what I thought in the last book, which is King really feels like he has to have a book tied up with all the loose ends before he's happy with it. The flip side of that is I actually think The Wastelands is the best of the three so far. In fact, I know that I have enjoyed this book more than the other two. That's just not to say they're bad. They weren't. They're very good. But The Wastelands is excellent. This is where, possibly because King has even moved further away from the kind of the fantasy and Western elements that he had in the first two books, and has gone straight into post-apocalyptic sci-fi for The Wastelands, which it's great. Every single book has had a slightly different feel, and it's worked really, really nicely. The Wastelands, with especially once they reach Lud, has a full-blown Mad Max feeling about it, with the various tribes and the insanity they have, and the technology that kind of still works but kind of doesn't still work, and everyone has reverted back almost to medieval ideas, yet they're all toting guns. You know, it's that kind of post-apocalyptic nature, and it works really well, and he writes it fantastically well. He kind of falls into some of the other issues that people tend to have when writing about post-apocalyptic cities, which is, you know, where does all the food come from, for starters? I mean, if it's been a couple of thousand years, potentially, since things have gone horribly wrong, hundreds of years, definitely, where's all the food? Because there isn't enough food there to feed everyone. And he kind of waves a stick at the realisation of this with one throwaway line from someone who says, "Oh, there's loads of food down here. More than 1,000 people could eat in 500 years," and then just moves on. And it's like, that doesn't really get you out of that. So what kind of food are you eating that survives after hundreds and hundreds of years? Because it ain't food, it's more likely to be plastic. And that doesn't move on to the pubes on the surface. It works for the greys, but not for the pubes, who are living on the surface and have apparently no means of food whatsoever. So how are they surviving? Don't know. Maybe they are all mutants. The other one with that is the indiscriminate slaughter, which is another kind of trap that you find a lot of authors writing about post-apocalyptics, or even medieval style fantasy falls into, where there's a mass slaughter every single day. Be it raiding parties, or ritual sacrifice, or in this book, it's as soon as music is played, they choose somebody to go and be hung, and the music plays at least once a day. And you're going, well, I'm thinking about the numbers that you have here, and if you did that, everyone would have hung themselves by now. You cannot breed quickly enough to fulfill the death toll that you've actually put out there. You've actually said in the book that people aren't having children. Certainly, you show very few women in the book on either side anyway. So how are you managing to get the numbers for this indiscriminate slaughter every day? It's one of those. It's the something that you find a lot of authors falling into, and anyone who thinks about it, and this is every single GM in the world, goes, hang on a minute, where does the food come from, and how do you kill all those people? So that kind of stuck in my book. It made me giggle a wee bit when I got to those sections, but that doesn't reduce the fact that the whole Bit and Lud is fantastically well written. There's a couple of little funny MacGuffins in there, like Oi. As soon as they meet Oi, the bumbler who's very much like a dog who cottons on to Jake, you can see what's going to happen already. You know for a fact that Jake's going to get snatched and Oi's going to hunt him down. Roland's going to use him to hunt him down. It's straight away, as soon as he makes that connection with Jake, you're like, right, I know what's going to happen. And Stephen King kind of goes, yep, this is totally what's going to happen, let's do it. And okay, fair enough, he runs with it, and he runs with it well, but I think he runs with it knowingly too. But the whole section of Lud is good. It's exciting, and it's leading up to the end, which I will get to in a minute, because it's tremendous. The earlier chunk of the book, the earlier half of the book, I enjoyed for an entirely different set of reasons, and that's with the introduction of Jake. Now, the whole section where Jake is introduced to the section where Jake bursts back into Roland's world is, I think, the finest writing Stephen King has done in 3 books. It's magnificent. The way that Jake's head is breaking, the same way that Roland's head is breaking, because of the duality of of what happened with Jack Mort. Because he stopped Jack Mort from killing Jake, he's now got 2 pasts in his head. A past where he never met Jake, and a past where he did meet Jake. Jake has a similar problem in he has a past where he died and a past where he lived, and so that duality, they try not to use the word paradox, they do occasionally, but the duality of those 2 lives running parallel is slowly driving both of them insane. And the way that this is handled is actually through the Dark Tower. So the rose and the choir and the light and the key all become integral parts of the story, and towards bringing Jake back to Roland's Land, to making them all whole again, and actually driving everything on towards the Dark Tower. Because you're now asking, well, what is the rose? Is the rose the Dark Tower? Is it just a metaphor for it? What's the Dark Tower doing with the acres and acres of roses, blood red roses, that Eddie sees in his dreams? Is the key that Eddie dreamt of just for Jake, or is it more reasonable to be used again later on? The kind of mental connection that Jake has with Eddie, and the way that their kind of pasts end up being entwined together to bring Jake through, it's all fantastically well written. And Stephen King said before that he's not an author that goes back and edits and twists and tweaks. He writes and writes and writes and writes and writes and writes and writes, and he finishes, and then he goes back and tweaks a little bit, but normally once he's finished a book, he's finished. And if that's what he's done with The Wastelands, then it's a tremendous piece of writing for someone who's just gone straight out of his mouth, straight onto the keyboard, I should say. It's fantastically well written, it's fantastically well thought out, and it actually gives you many, many ideas towards what could be happening later on. It's slightly metaphysical, it's slightly again environmental horror when Jake is coming through from from our world into Roland's world, and you discover that the gatekeeper is actually the entire house, in the same way that the gatekeeper that Roland, Eddie and Susanna fight is basically a giant bear with a radar dish on his head. Jake has to go through an entire house to get there, and I think that's where Stephen King's horror background plays quite well. With Jake going through the house and finding the doorway and fighting his way out, and it's done really, really well, but it's more classic horror than a lot of the rest of the book. But the whole metaphysical aspect of it is tremendous, fantastically well written, and made me excited for the rest of the series. If he keeps up that level of kind of layering, so he's got the real world, and I say the real world, he's got Roland's world, he's got several different types of our world, he's got different Wens, and they introduced the idea of the Thinny, all pitched in with the Rose being connected, with all their lives being connected in different ways, put into this kind of post-apocalyptic world. I mean, when they're on Blaine and they're travelling through the wastelands, the wastelands really only appear for like 20 pages at the end, and it is a blasted, barren area that obviously had nukes dropped on it, and that's the way it's described as well. But we're on Blaine's back and travelling through the wastelands, outside of Lud. You're going, this is where it's going to get brilliant. This series could be fantastic if he just continues down this path. I worry that he won't. I worry that he'll flip in the next book into a different style, because that seems to be the way he's doing this. But if he sticks to what he has in the Wastelands, I think it'll be tremendous. I think the rest of the series will be amazing. The book finishes with them on or inside Blaine, who is the Charlie the Choo-Choo that Jake worries about and is evil, and there's actually a proper children's book about, hurtling them towards their death. Basically this is a huge artificial intelligence that's gone completely insane, that kind of half run Lud and half runs this train, and that's where it ends, and that's tremendous. It's fantastic. Please, I want more. I want more of that. Continue with that, and it'll be fantastic. I'll really, really enjoy it. I've got Wizard and Glass sitting beside me here. You can see how far I'm through it, and I won't get into Wizard and Glass yet, because that'll be the next time round. But suffice to say, he doesn't. He hasn't continued on with it at all, which is disappointing. But Wizard and Glass may have one of my favourite moments in books at all in it, which I'll get to when I do that one on Wednesday. So to sum up Wastelands. I really enjoyed this book. Really, really enjoyed it. In the hierarchy of books that I have enjoyed during this run so far, it's probably second on the list, I think, after Wilt. It'll take an awful lot to beat Wilt. Wilt was tremendous. This is really good. This is really enjoyable. I think if you quite liked the first two books, but you weren't sure about continuing, I would say continue on and read this one. This one's really good. By all means, read this book, especially if you're reading The Dark Tower. Read this one. It's really, really good. You could almost even read this on its own. You'd be probably slightly confused about Jake, but because at the start of the book he gives you a little bit of a run through about what's happened previously, you can probably just skip the first two books and go straight to this one, in all honesty. I wouldn't advise it, but you could. But this is, I think, the best one of them so far. So, next week will be on Wednesday, Wizard and Glass. Assuming I get it read in time. There's still 600 pages of this to read, and not a huge amount of time to read it in. So, fingers crossed I get this done. If I don't think I'm going to get this done by Wednesday, I may sub in a very short book, which I can read in a night, and get that done and do that on Wednesday. It all depends on how I get done tonight and tomorrow, I think. If I spend another 3 hours tonight reading, I might get there, I might not. It's going to be a close run thing. This is a big thick book. They're all big thick books, so I might sub in a couple more short ones after this, and just try and catch up, because this has been these aren't thick books with big words. These are thick books with lots and lots of little words, which makes them quite dense reads. Some of the other thick books have nice big words, so they'll be slightly easier reads. But this is probably the biggest and densest run of books out of the entire 100. So I'm not surprised that I'm struggling to get them done. Slightly surprised that I'm struggling quite so badly to get them done, but like I said, I might sub in a couple of small ones and get myself back on track a little bit. We'll see. If it gets to Wednesday and it's not Wizard and Glass, you know what's happened, and I've admitted it right off the bat. So we'll see. Yes, So, to sum up again, this is Reading for Charity. We're reading for the Archie Foundation. It's a fantastic charity. It helps sick kids in the northeast of Scotland. If you've ever been into hospital as an adult, you know how terrifying that can be. Especially if you've gone into theatre, it's cold, it's stainless steel, it's foreboding, it's really clinical. It's terrifying going as an adult. Imagine what it must be going in as a child. It's a fantastic charity to support. I support it wholeheartedly. I strongly encourage you to support it wholeheartedly also. I'll put the description for the Just Giving link in the... I'll put the link for the Just Giving page in the description of the video. If you've donated before, thank you very much. What's stopping you from donating again? If you've never donated, please go ahead and donate. It's a fantastic charity. I never see a penny of this. The Just Giving link just sends it straight to Archie. And it's a really good charity to support. So, I will send out another video on... what is today? Sunday. The next video will be on Wednesday, assuming I've not gone insane by then. Thank you very much for listening, and good evening.